In this section, we will work on the courtyard wall panel. It's listed here in the miscellaneous section under lightweight chipboard, and I've got it here in front of me. Now the first thing we want to do is to put a piece of pattern paper in the center, and I've cut it 2.5 inches tall, and this is from the 6-inch pad. And I'm just kind of eyeballing it in the center. If you want to measure, go ahead and do so. And I have, as you can see, really good score tape here on the background, or the back. And then I'll get that adhered, and then I'll put really good score tape on the back as well. And then I'll be back. So here you can see I have my paper adhered in the front, and I also have a patch of score tape in the back as well. And now I'm just going to use my mat, or you could use your centering ruler, and center this so that I can see where the center is. Because what we want to do is cut a series of 3 arches, and we'll start with the middle one. And this is Tim Holtz sized arch. It's the smallest one. Now if you don't have that arch, I've included on one of the template pages, here's the shape of it, and you can just use that template and cut that arch here. So when I place this, it's similar to how we did the opening in the second level annex. We want the edge of this die, cutting edge of that die, to be even with the bottom of the panel, and then centered on that center line. You'll have to be careful because there is not much room left up here at the top when you cut this die, so just be very careful. So I'm going to cut that center one, and then I'll be back. So here's my first arch cut, and I want to put one on either side. And I want the other arches to have 1/4 inch of the chipboard in between them. And one way to do that is to take a ruler where you can put the 1/4 inch mark right on that line. And I've just got everything straight here. And then you can bump the edge of the die part, not the wood block, but the die itself, up against that straight edge, and then making sure that your bottom of the die part is even with the bottom of the chipboard. Go ahead and put that on and cut a die, cut an opening on either side so that you end up with 3 openings. And the more you cut, of course, the flimsier this piece will get, so just be very careful. So I have my 3 openings cut, and I'm going to take my black Copic marker and go around the insides of each one of these arches. And then I'll also take some more of my green paper and fill in these last 2 pieces over here. I'll again use some good score tape coverage. So I've finished darkening the edges of my arches, and I actually took my marker and went on a little bit of a slant from the front just so I could have a little bit more black showing there. There's not enough room, I don't think, here to try to put any kind of framing around these arched openings, but you're sure welcome to try. And then I have a little piece of my trim here, and I'm going to put that in between the 2 arches, and then come about 3/4 of an inch on either side. You don't have to go all the way because the ends of this get covered up by our 2 courtyard pedestals. And then once the trim is on, we want to pick some images to go in our opening. Now this is the 12 by 12 paper. This is Gilded Grandeur, and There are some images here that could work. Be the size, you just have to decide what you want to have showing in each one. Or if you have the 8x8 pad of this paper as well, this sheet called Gallant Knight has images that I think are the right size to fit in these openings. Now, we used the Prince Charming or Sleeping Beauty, whatever scene you want to call this. We used this up on the second level annex, so I won't use this scene, but anything else could work. You could even have the flowers or peacock, whatever you want in there. So you pick your images, and when you cut them out, make sure you cut them out 1/8 of an inch wider on either side of what you want, so that you'll be able to fasten them down to the backing. So I'm going to pick out my images and add my trim, and then I'll be back. So here are my figures inside of the openings of the panel. I did choose 3 images from the 8x8 pad. And also, when I put these little pieces of trim down here, I put just a little bit of glue behind them. My experience is when you have tiny pieces that I shouldn't rely just on the score tape, but your experience may vary. So then on the back here, I put 2-inch score tape on both ends because the pedestals will attach to those, and then I just put a couple of strips of score tape in there. Now this panel goes on the front of our interior structure. Now I sized it to be slightly less than the width of the structure, just so that you wouldn't have to worry about, is it too long? It won't matter that it's just slightly less. And so now we can put that on. I'm going to put it on in this position because I want to make sure that the bottom edge here is flush with the bottom edge of the interior structure. So I'll go ahead and put that on. And then you'll of course want to give that a good burnish. Next we'll construct a piece that I'm calling the railing. The parts are listed on the miscellaneous section under the any color medium weight chipboard. There are 4 pieces that are the top and bottom, and 2 pieces that are the sides. We're going to start out by doubling up and gluing together the 2 sets of the narrower strips. These are the 1/4 inch strips. So I'm just going to glue them up, doubles, and then let them sit for a few minutes. And now that my 2 double thicknesses have set up, I'm going to put the railing together, and I have here one of the 1/2 inch wide pieces, and I'm just going to use these, set them right on top on both the top and the bottom, so that we're going to form a little box here with these sides. So I'll glue these sides on like this, and then I'll come back and put a bead of glue and put the second piece on top here so that I have a little box. On the front of this railing, I'm going to use a strip of these shields, and as luck would have it, if you cut a strip that is 8 7/8, you'll be able to fit the shields in with just a little bit of black on the ends of each one, or the ends of the strip. Now I also cut this strip so that that's even with the top of the shields below it, so I'd have just a little bit of black underneath that. And what I'm going to do here is just fussy cut leaving a little black reveal right along the bottom edges of these shields. Now if this is too much fussiness for you, you can just leave this strip as it is. But while this glue is setting up on my railing, I'll just take a moment and do that fussy cutting. So my railing piece is dry. I fussy cut the bottom edge of my shields. I also use some black ink on the bottom and the top and the ends, and then I prep that with a strip of score tape. And then to cover this piece, I'm going to use a piece from the 6x6 pad. Now obviously it's not long enough, but I think this paper is busy enough that I can make a join here and it won't be noticeable. Now if you don't feel that that's so, please choose another paper and work with that. So what I've done here is cut two strips that are 1 1/8, and I just kind of looked at them, and I think if I put them together like this, that won't be so noticeable. I've inked both edges in preparation, and then I just have a piece of score tape here that's spanning the join, and I'll just line this up on a line on my craft mat, and then make sure I get a really tight join there. I'm just kind of pressing that up against it, and then making sure I come straight across here on my craft mat, and then I can give that a good burnish. And that, like I said, this paper is so busy I can't really tell that join is there. So we only need a piece that is long enough to go on our railing, so I'll cut this to length. And now that I have my piece cut to length, I'm going to score it at 1/2 inch and 7/8. So that was 1/2 and 7/8. So I folded along the score lines, and I added some score tape to the two tabs. I didn't put any in the middle. I don't think we'll need any, but you can of course add some if you want. And then before we install this on our chipboard piece, I just want to put some ink along the bottom edges on the 1/2 inch side, and then these ends, just in case things show a little bit. I'll repeat that on this side. So now that I have my ink lines on the bottom on both sides on the chipboard, I'm going to install my piece here. I'm going to put it on the 1/2 inch side first, just using that score line to line it up. And then I'll wrap it around to the other side. So here's my wrapped piece. And on the side where we just have the 1/4 inch, I'm just going to take my black marker and go right along that top edge. And I'm doing that because when I put this strip on here, I don't want to see any peeking through of any of the little tan graphics. If that doesn't bother you, you can skip that step. And so now I'll attach this shield strip to the side that is not completely covered. It may look like it, but this is just my black inking down here. And make sure you give those shields a good burnish. Now I did have a little bit of cracking here at the top, so I just used my ink to remedy that. Now when we install this piece, we want to hold it a little bit in front of the Courtyard panel so we get a nice shadow line there. So I've just cut, or this is just a scrap piece of the 16th inch chipboard. I'm just going to hold that up in front there and then use that as my spacer, so that when I glue that on I can use that as a spacer and it will keep this whole unit a 1/16 of an inch in front of the Courtyard panel, and you'll get a nice shadow there. You might not be able to see it here, but I can see it. So we'll install this by running a bead of glue along this part here and holding our little spacer strip up here. Make sure you don't get it caught in the glue, and put that on. So I held my glue line back from center a little bit towards the side without the shields, and then I'll hold my spacer up here make sure my ends are flush there. And then give that some pressure and let it dry. It will be easier to do this if it's in the upright position. So here's the front railing installed.